Hi there, and welcome back to Good Distinctions. I'm your host, Will Wright, and Good Distinctions are the spice of life. Today, I'm joined by my friend Rae-Mi LeRoy. Rae-Mi, welcome.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here with you, as always.
It's wonderful to have you here. So, just a little bit of background for those listening. Rae-Mi and I met at the Institute of Catholic Theology, studying for our master's degrees in theology at Franciscan University. Rae-Mi, I think you're pretty close to done, aren't you?
I am. I actually just took the final exam of my final class on Saturday, and I just have to take a
Congrats.
comprehensive exam, and then I'll be done. Yeah.
The comps are so simple, so easy. No, actually, that was a beast, but you'll be great. It'll be
Yes.
awesome. I'll help you study later.
I'll allow
All right,
myself
so
to relax before I get anxiety about that.
so moving on from that, I invited Rae-Mi on today to talk about New Age. She works in Sedona, Arizona. If you haven't been there, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And it also happens to be what I call the mecca of the New Age movement in 2023, almost 2024. There's nowhere else that I can think of in this hemisphere that is more attuned to New Age thought, practice, and just sort of being present. You drive down the street, walk down the street, and there's New Age stores, entire stores,
Oh, yeah.
not just one, but multiple.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Red Rocks have a certain power and aura. Anyway, we're not going to get into that yet, but we will get into that. But I guess I'll just start with this. I'll start with a comment, and then you can sort of take it from there. So maybe this is going to be a little bit controversial, but oh well. We at Good Distinctions are all about making good distinctions because they are the spice of life. But this one might be a little bit on the nose and maybe not as much of a good distinction as me just trying to be a bit of a troll. So here we go. I think, philosophically speaking, technically speaking, Buddhism may in fact be further from Christianity than Satanism. Rae-Mi, what do you think about that?
Great first
Crazy controversial
question.
comment.
Yeah, first comment of the podcast. Yeah, well, actually, I could see why you would say something like that. Because at least in Satanism, they're recognizing Christ. There's a recognition of Christianity. Maybe it's a negative or opposite recognition. I mean, in the Bible, the demons know who Christ is.
Mm-hmm.
But in Buddhism, there is no recognition of Christianity, of Christ, or even of God. It's really all about self-emptying, non-attachment, becoming nothing. So I could see how you could say a comment like that. Like, it's not out of the realm of, it's not super crazy. But yeah, it's kind of, Christ says, would you, rather be hot or cold, not lukewarm, So I think it falls into that category of being, cold, I guess.
Well, I guess I should make a caveat here before anybody tries to cancel me or sue me for defamation. I don't think Buddhism is evil like Satanism is evil. I
Right.
think it's a grave evil to worship Satan. However, I think there are some serious problems with Buddhism. So
Yeah.
you've already mentioned a couple of those. This idea of self-emptying for what? I mean, what's the end? What's the goal?
Right. Yeah. And this is where, I kind of got into trouble myself. I was studying Buddhism and then got into yoga and kind of got all into the Eastern spirituality and the self-emptying. I was telling you before we started that when I was at a yoga studio, they had a challenge of 30 days of taking a yoga class, and then you would get a t-shirt that says surrender. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I was like, yeah, surrender, it's great. But looking back, I'm thinking, surrender to what? When you surrender, you're surrendering to something. Every yoga class.
Well, and surrender to who?
Who? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Every yoga class ends in corpse pose, where you're just kind of melting into nothingness. And Buddhism is along the same lines of just this self-emptying, non-attachment, which, we know there can be good qualities to that. Like you were saying earlier,
Hmm.
as Christians, we want to empty ourselves to fill ourselves and have a relationship. It's all about having a relationship with God, but that relationship isn't there with that. So you're just
Hmm.
emptying and emptying and emptying, and you're becoming nothing, which can be very dangerous. It feels good at first because you're just like, I'm letting go of all the stress, all the anxiety, all these burdens. But then you're opening yourself up to anything, like really bad things. Your human dignity is being emptied as well. And you may find
Hmm.
yourself getting involved in things, because, well, if nothing, if you're nothing, what does it matter? You're just kind of just melt with the universe. Like you're just part of the universe, like, whatever. Um, and then it can lead you to a place of nihilism or even despair. Whereas, at first you're thinking, this is great. Um, Nothing matters. Like, I don't have to worry. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. And then eventually you're like, nothing matters. Like, so what's the point of anything?
Hmm.
So it can be dangerous in a lot of different ways. And I know for myself, I got to a point where I literally said to my parents over Christmas holiday, um, I don't, I don't know who I am anymore. It was kind of like,
Hmm.
and I hadn't become Catholic yet. I was in this middle place where I was realizing like something's wrong. I've lost myself, and I didn't even know what I meant by that. Like, I wasn't even sure what I meant exactly. I just knew like whoever I am was gone, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And it felt really dire, but I couldn't understand
Hmm.
it completely. So looking back now, having many years to reflect on it and learning the truth of our faith, I can see how damaging that emptying can be. So
Well, so you said it. You described it as dire. I
yeah.
mean, that seems like a fairly dramatic existential crisis. Was it a sort of this? Say more on that. Like, was it a feeling of being on a cliff, like looking into nothingness, or were you thinking, okay, I must be something, so I need to just find that? So was it like a frantic search, or was it feeling like you were slipping into the void?
It felt like slipping into a void. Like I just
Hmm.
felt kind of lost. And it was very strange, just to go a little bit into to my personal story at the time, because at the time I had everything that the world tells you should want. I had a really great job. I was working at
Hmm.
20th Century Fox. I worked in Nakatomi Plaza from the Die Hard movies. Like that was my office building. Super
Nice.
cool. I was going to parties on the Fox back lot. I was moving up the corporate ladder. I was in great shape, going to the gym all the time. So it was just this really strange juxtaposition of, I have everything that the world says I want. I'm moving up. I'm doing all these things, but I feel like I don't know. I feel empty because I was emptying
Hmm.
myself, right? But I'm like, I feel just completely lost, and I don't understand who I am. None of this seems to really matter, really, you know. Um, and for me, I did. It felt very dire. It felt like an emergency, and I just was like, I just have to get out of here. Like I have to leave LA. And
Hmm.
I gave my 2 week notice to leave with really no plan. Everyone thought I was completely out of my mind. Because I was like, all I could think, because I wasn't Catholic. I didn't know anything about Christianity. So I didn't really understand what the problem was. But I was like, I just have to get closer to nature. That's all I could think of. I just have to get closer to
Hmm.
nature and get where it's quiet. Because when I'm here and I have all these, the flashy LA Hollywood thing going on, I just knew I wasn't ever going to be able to figure out what was happening if I was there. So Yeah, it was a pretty dramatic move. And everyone thought I was crazy, but God knew what he was doing.
He always does.
Yeah.
Well, so you said when you were doing yoga and things like this and emptying yourself and sort of slipping into, I think you said slipping into the universe, something like that. It kind of reminded me of a sort of uh, a, a pantheism, like this idea of nature being God.
Mhm.
Was there any sort of notion of that, or were you like sort of just normally or naturally temperamentally attracted to nature?
I
Or
think
was it just simply this reaction against the hustle and bustle of LA?
I think it was more reaction against the LA
Okay.
scene. I mean, LA was good to me, and I'm not putting it down for sure, but it's very much, I mean, like
I'm
most.
happy to put it down. I'm very happy to put it down. I hate LA. Sorry, LA
No,
folks.
but
It's
like
not my favorite place in the world.
sure, yeah, I get it. I mean, like most cities and corporate lifestyle, you do become detached. There is something, I mean, God, when you're in nature, when you're at the Grand Canyon, you're here in Sedona, you do feel closer to God because God created that. But when you're surrounded by buildings, you know, you start to get a bit disconnected. So I think I was picking up on that. I was never like a nature,
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, but it's all I could think to do, I guess. And I think just getting quiet, getting away from, I knew I wasn't strong enough, being in LA, being there with all the fancy stuff I had and I just knew if I didn't get out of there, I was going to kind of get sucked into that and simultaneously like losing myself, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Um,
So how did you settle on Sedona?
well, actually, my folks moved here in
Oh, okay.
2008. So I was visiting them, here on vacations and stuff like that. And Sedona is gorgeous, so anybody who comes
It
here, I
is.
mean, it's hard not to fall in love with Sedona. So when I got it in my head that I wanted to get out of the city and go closer to nature, it seemed to make sense because I had some familiarity with this place. I had family here. So that was the main reason I came to this area, and I don't regret it. It is like living in paradise. It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Well, and it's for anyone who listening who's not from Arizona, it's only 2 hours from Phoenix. It's an
Yeah.
easy drive. So definitely come out and see it and come to um, uh, see the beautiful nature, but then also the chapel in Sedona is also beautiful. But we'll
Yeah.
get there in a moment because I do want to talk about the chapel because I love it. I've been there multiple times and it's one of those places where you feel close to God because he's literally there in the tabernacle, but then you look out the window and you see his creation and you're like, wow, this is cool.
Have you
It's
heard
like
the
the best
joke?
of both worlds.
Yeah, right. Like, have you heard the joke? Like, God made the Grand Canyon, but he lives in Sedona.
I'd believe it. I mean, the Grand Canyon's cool, but Sedona, there is something special about that place.
Yeah,
Uh, it's so gorgeous, and it's not just the red rocks. I mean, it's the drive in, driving from like Oak Creek up to Sedona,
yeah.
um, is one of my favorite parts. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And when I first moved here, I was
So you
all
get,
about the new
yeah,
age. I was all about, like, I was like, when I got here, I was like, oh, great. Now I'm really going to dive into my Buddhism, my yoga, my new age stuff.
yeah. What was that transition like? I mean, you obviously, like I said, when you drive down the street, you see everything right. Not just the shops, but like the sides of the buildings advertise very clearly this is a new age place.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, like you said, almost on every corner, you're finding a crystal store, a new age store, a psychic, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
And when I came here, that was my main goal, was to really dive into that world. And I did. I went
Hmm.
to a meditation center here. I was going to the new age places all the time, practicing yoga. going to Buddhist retreats, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I was doing that for about a year, and I was kind of feeling like I was coming up. I mean, loved being here from the beginning for sure, just because it was gorgeous. I was on the trails all the time, and that was really great. But as far as my spirituality was going, it was kind of coming up empty. And I
Hmm.
actually was given the grace of a bit of a mystical experience where I had a dream of Jesus. That was kind of the catalyst, I guess, for my becoming interested in the Catholic Church. I had this dream, and then over the next 6 months, um, Catholicism, Christianity was slipping into all these other things. Like I was listening
Hmm.
to a Buddhist talk, and he started talking about the Serenity Prayer, and I was reading a book about a Buddhist nun, and she started talking about a CC. And I'm like looking these things up, listening to a new age guru who brought up sin, and I was like, whoa, I've never heard anybody talk about this before. And so I always say, Jesus was courting me, and kind of slipping into these things and showing me the right the way, the right way to go. And
Hmm.
eventually I was like, maybe I should check out the Catholic Church, and the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, that was my trajectory when I came here, and God had other plans. So thankfully.
If you don't mind going into it, what was that dream like? I mean, was it very, very clear to you that it was Jesus from the get go? Like, did he say, "Hi, it's it's me, it's Jesus"? We haven't
Yeah,
really met, but
I
hi.
usually don't go into it unless someone asks. So since you asked, um, yeah. So in the dream, well, first of all, when I woke up, I did instinctively know it was him, but I didn't really
Hmm.
want to say it because I was like, that was weird. Like why would Jesus come to me? I don't go to church. I don't pray. I don't do any of these things. So um, I did know, and I didn't really. I kind of brushed it off. I was like, well, he obviously got lost. But in the dream, I was standing in front of him, and it was just very. I felt instantly at peace and very peaceful, and he
Hmm.
said, "What do you say every day?" And I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. I wanted to answer it correctly. And I was doing affirmations at the time, where you stand in front of a mirror and you say, all is well in my life. So that's what I said. I said, all is well in my life. And he said, well, which life? And I was like, what is that? What does that mean? Yeah.
Huh.
So then he gestured to the side, and I looked, and there were all these feathers sticking out of the ground. And he said, these are all the hearts beating on earth. And I remember thinking, that's a lot of feathers, but it's not everybody. And next thing I knew, he was holding me, and it felt like I felt very safe, like a little kid, like it was just like a brother or father
Hmm.
holding me. And I saw a feather floating in the air, and I started walking towards it, and he said, go ahead. And I grabbed it, and it had a ring on it, and I stuck it on my finger, and I woke up. And I was like, whoa, that's,
Wow,
yeah, yeah, it was pretty wild.
that's
And
awesome.
it was amazing. Like, I mean, that was back in 2016, and I still to this. I mean, it still blows my mind every time I think about it. But it wasn't like, I mean, looking back, I'm like, gosh, I should have just right then and there, became Christian, like. But it was kind of like that's weird. Why would that happen to me? Why would he come to me? And I told my mom, and when I told my mom, I didn't say who it was, and she's like, "That sounds like Jesus," And so it was,
Hmm.
but I really didn't tell anyone else, and I just kind of went to my Buddhist stuff and continued on my way, and that's when it just kind of started slipping into everything. And so yeah, I mean, I'm convinced, no one else has to believe it. I don't care. I know it's real. I know he came to get me. you know.
I mean,
Um,
that's totally Jesus's MO. Like, God speaks to people in dreams all the time. That
yes.
seems very, very clear to me. I mean, I'm fully convinced that that was Jesus. There's no other. I mean, that's as clear of a breakthrough of grace as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
But okay, so just from a skeptical standpoint, like
Hmm.
playing devil's advocate, so to speak, was there anything before that that sort of might have led to you thinking about Christianity or about Jesus?
No, and that's why it's so real to me, because there's no,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I dreamed of Jesus now, I'd be like, well, all I do is I work at a church, I pray, I watch movies
Yeah,
about Jesus. Like,
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, of course, I wouldn't think much of it. I'm telling you, I literally was doing nothing at all. Like, that had anything to
Hmm.
do with Jesus, anything to do with Christianity, wasn't going to church, wasn't praying, nothing. It wouldn't even have occurred to me to go to a church. In fact, it was a bit of a turnoff at the time, you know?
Right. Well, and it's not that you weren't doing nothing. You were absolutely doing something. You were doing yoga. You were going to Buddhist retreats. You were steeped in that, and yet
Hmm.
uh, Jesus came to you in a way that you couldn't ignore,
Yeah, and I
even
and
though
I
you tried for a little bit,
I even
apparently.
try. Yeah, I even tried. That's
Yeah.
what's and that's the thing is I try to have that mindset too of just being a little skeptical, like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe it was, but well, first of all, as Catholics, what do we always look at the fruit. What's the fruit? I mean,
Hmm.
here I am finishing my master's in theology, working at a church now. Like, I'm part of the prayer and sacramental life and going to confession and all of it. And however many years later. So that's definitely proof that something happened there. And then the fact that I wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything that, could have slipped into my subconscious to bring that about. And it's very, looking back, and like you said, it's his MO, even the question, like asking questions and saying things that don't, like, at first you're like, wait, what? And I mean,
What are you talking about?
yeah, the more I like, it's like the more I think about it, the more I learn about our faith, the more I read scripture, the more it makes sense. And of course, I was like a lot of people in the secular worlds where it was like, well, no, I mean, Jesus only goes to people who are perfect, who go to church.
Hmm.
Like, he wouldn't, I'm not a part of that group, like, he wouldn't come to me. But that's exactly what he does. Like, yeah, he does. He goes to the lost sheep, like, and, even though I was practicing things in total contradiction, I was genuinely searching, um,
Hmm.
and open. So, I mean, St. Paul was literally killing Christians, um,
Yeah.
so, I think it's like looking for that heart that's open and
Hmm.
really truly searching for the truth, and or that relationship. And even if you don't know what you're searching for, and it's sad that in our world, our world's become so secular that it never even occurred to me to look there,
Hmm.
to go to a church. I mean, I think I've told you this before in my conversion story. When I did call the Catholic Church, like, I asked if I needed a ticket. I mean, I didn't even know, like, you could just go, you know. So that's how, like, far gone I was, which makes it all the more legitimate to me, like, that experience.
Yeah, well, it shows a few things. It shows that clearly Catholics, we have a lot of work to do on evangelization, on being more welcoming about going to where people are.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, this is one thing that was very clear to me when I worked in a parish was why are we not going beyond our four walls to
Mhm.
where people are who aren't coming, who aren't even looking at the Catholic
Mhm.
Church? That's where we should be going.
Right.
And really, that's what all of us and all of us laity are called to. Right? The clergy sanctifies the people, and then the people are supposed to go out and
Mhm.
sanctify the world. And in a lot of ways, that's not happening. And we definitely have a lot of room to improve. We'll put it that way. But so, what did it look like? So you didn't have to get a ticket; you could actually just go to mass.
You just go.
Um, but then, what are the next steps? What happened after?
Well, I did. I went to mass. I sat in the very back, of course, and I had no clue what was going on. I felt like I had entered a foreign country or something. I mean, everybody was
Hmm.
speaking English, but they might as well have not have not speaking English. I didn't understand really what was happening.
Hmm.
But I wanted to understand, like, because I was like, I knew something was happening. Like everybody's drinking out of the same cup. Like something's going on here, Um, so I went to the pastor after mass and said, "Listen, I don't know what's going on, but I want to understand. What do I do?" And unfortunately, he said, just keep coming to mass. And he kind of just walked away. And I said, well, that's not going to cut it because I don't understand what's happening. Like, I need somebody. I always joke, like, I was like in the book of Acts, where it's like, how do I know unless someone explains it? Um, so they didn't have an RCIA program there at the time. So I called another church nearby, and thankfully, they had a program. They had a woman teaching it who was wonderful, who became my mentor, and we became fast friends. And I ended up going there. And then over time, going to mass and going to the RCIA classes and hearing the gospel for the first time, I was blown away. I was like, why isn't everybody here? Like, this is all I've been searching for my whole life. I mean, what sticks out was when Jesus says, do not be anxious about anything, and it's like, well, that's what I was looking for, things like that. I mean, when they read the raising of Lazarus, and I was just I'm looking around like, did you guys just hear what they were talking about? Like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever. I'm like, why isn't this place like busting at the seams with people here? I had never heard anything like that before. And that was it. I knew like this is what I've been looking for this whole time, you know? So yeah, I was given so many graces, and I didn't deserve them, of course. Like I didn't do anything, to get that, but that's what he does. So
I was listening to Father Josh Johnson give a talk a few years ago, and he started the talk at the conference by saying, just to let you all know, you deserve hell. And we're like, wow, thanks, Father. And he's like, that's how he began it. But he's like, but thankfully, Jesus redeemed you, and you don't have to go there. And it was a nice, reality check. And
yeah,
sometimes my friend Chris and I occasionally will go, remember, you deserve hell. So be
yeah, right.
thankful, be grateful.
Yeah,
Well, and it's interesting that you said that you were receiving things that you had been looking for, because back when in your dream you mentioned that Jesus, you felt a sense of peace,
hmm,
which is not nothing. It's not an emptiness. You're
yeah,
like Jesus says, I have a peace the world cannot give.
hmm,
And so you're receiving that peace, and it took a while to unpack that. But again, it just highlights that with Jesus, we're not emptying ourselves for nothing. We're emptying ourselves for him to fill us with
yeah,
his peace and with his joy, and to not be anxious. It's everything the world is looking for.
right,
Um, and he's the only one who can give it. So
exactly.
it's phenomenal to hear how he worked in your life. And this was, I mean, um, this was not like some emotional sort of fling, right? This
Mhm.
is, you were an adult at this point.
Yeah, I was 38 years
Just
old
like,
when that happened. Yeah,
so this is not some sort of young fling of like, well, I'm just gonna try this for a while.
yeah.
This was a huge step.
Yeah, I mean, this is when I came into the church, or when I started going to mass and starting to learn about our faith, I was like, this is it. Like, I don't know how not to give everything to this now. Like, I mean, like, this is everything. This is all that really matters. And I don't know
Hmm.
how I can't have every single facet of my life somehow involved with Jesus, with the church. I mean, that just It's just, and it has been since. And it's interesting too, like you were saying, it's not just a fling, because it doesn't feel good all the time. I mean, it's hard sometimes, you know.
No,
Um,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel good all the time. Sometimes it's really freaking hard.
yeah,
So for those listening, yes, the Christian life is difficult, and that's okay.
exactly. Yeah, and we're so blessed to have the sacraments to sustain us
Mhm.
into, because you know life is hard no matter what. I mean, like, it's going to be difficult. So why wouldn't you have Jesus there with you? I mean, and you have confession. I mean, confessions become one of my favorite things ever, I mean, just to be able to get that peace, uh,
Mhm.
on a regular basis, is just such a gift that he gave us. And obviously the Eucharist. But yeah, I mean, it can be very hard sometimes. And it's good to recall the beginnings of my journey, because it reminds me of the wonder of it. And not that I've lost the wonder of it, but
Mhm.
you get the reality of the day to day. It's like, okay, now that you're in, I'm going to put you to work.
Well, and you went straight from uh, New Age Buddhism, non-Christian, not baptized, to not only Catholic, but the obvious next step of I must get a master's in theology. And
Obviously.
then that's obviously the next step. But then you also are working at a parish. And, as someone who worked in a parish, you could be working for the best parish in the world, but nobody ever wants to see how the sausage is made.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a totally different thing to work in a parish day in and day out, because you have human beings with their messy lives,
Hmm.
converging constantly,
Yeah.
and it's not the professional world, it's not the business world, it's messy parish. It's basically families. It's families.
I
It's
was
a
going to
family of
say,
families.
I feel like I've entered the family business, or something.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, as since we're talking about, kind of new age versus, it's interesting because when you're in the new age worlds, Buddhism, yoga, all that kind of stuff, there isn't that relationship,
Hmm.
and there isn't that commit. Like, relationships mean commitment, and it means you're going to be doing things sometimes maybe you don't want to do, or maybe you're tired. And I noticed, like, when I was in that world, I didn't do anything I didn't want to do. I was kind of
Hmm.
like, I don't feel like doing it today. Okay, and you turn that into, like, that's a spiritual thing. Like,
Hmm.
it's only if I feel like doing it, and I'm not feeling like doing it, or and I was
Hmm.
very much living a life like that. And it may seem nice, but you're not really. Why are you here? What I mean? Like, you're not really giving of yourself, and therefore you're not really getting anything real back either. And that's the thing
Hmm.
that you when you become a Christian, you're in a relationship. You're in a relationship with Christ first and foremost, but also all your Christian brothers and sisters. And there is, like, you're giving of yourself. I mean, we look at a crucifix, right? I mean, the ultimate of giving of your life, and that's what we're called to. And it can be intimidating sometimes, and it can be a temptation to go into that world of not having any commitment to anybody or anything. And but once
Hmm.
again, that leads to then this nihilism, this nothing really matters. I don't really need to be there for anybody. And you just kind of become lost. Like, it sounds like a good thing, but you end up becoming lost, because we're built, God, I always say God's law is never opposed to natural law. It is natural law. Like, he made us, he knows what we
Hmm.
need.
Hmm.
And we're human beings. Like, we do need that relationship and that giving and receiving. And that's been something that's been pretty amazing, especially being in a parish, because you're just giving in a really big way, and to so many people.
Yeah.
And that can be hard sometimes, and it can be amazing. I mean, you're a father. I mean, that's like the ultimate. And really, I think when we're thinking about being a Christian and we're thinking about God, it's that parental relation. I mean, we're his children,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what we need to think about. And in these other philosophies or whatever you want to call them, like that's not there. It's just doing what feels good.
Well, I hear a lot of people who are into sort of new age-y things as a sort of umbrella term, talking about needing to like ground themselves, needing to or
Mhm.
to find themselves. So, a couple thoughts on those two things. So, this idea of grounding yourself, the Greek word humus means dirt, means ground, the soil, and it's the same root word as humility. And so, when you talk about God being our Father, it reminded me of how much work I need to do as a father. I mean, you brought that up, and I thought, yeah, because I have a lot of work to do. And I think the biggest thing it is for me is humbling because
Mhm.
I'm trying to be the best father and husband I can be, and I fail so often. Um, but it's exactly that. It's humbling, which is a good thing if I allow it to be. When I embrace that, and it leads me to self knowledge, and it leads me to ultimately to wisdom and holiness, God willing. I mean, that's the idea. But so I think that we can only find grounding when we see ourselves as we are before God.
Yeah,
But this
absolutely.
other idea of finding ourselves, I want to get your thoughts on this because it seems like everyone I've talked to who's into crystals or anything else, they're trying to solve their various problems
Hmm.
using these sort of externals,
Yeah.
ultimately to calm everything in their lives and find balance and ultimately find themselves as a unified whole. But that's never going to work, and it's maddeningly frustrating to me. um, but I don't have the words. I don't know how to help people through that, and it seems like you have real world experience there. So I mean,
Yeah.
what do you say to people who are looking for themselves? I mean, my only response is, well, keep looking, and maybe you'll find yourself in the mirror. I guess I don't know, like where do you need to go to find yourself? But what would you actually say to someone who's especially really into like crystals or chakras or auras or whatever else they might be looking
Yeah.
for balance and wholeness?
Yeah, it's tricky. I always say we're in mission territory here because, as you said, it's very new agey, and
Hmm.
we're trying to bring the gospel to people and figuring out the best way to do that. And I know, as somebody who was on the other side, that um, there's certain things that will speak to people who are in that place. I always try to. I know it can be really easy to be cynical and towards people in that area or doing all of that stuff. But I try to look at them the way I was. Like they're
Hmm.
searching.
Yeah.
So what are the kinds of things for me that that brought me or opened my eyes or helped me see where the truth really was? And there we have, as Catholics, we just have a treasure trove. I mean, to pull from. I mean, the saints are just such a great way um, for
Hmm.
people to get into our faith. I mean, for me, like I said, I read a book about a Buddhist nun, and she talked about Assisi. So of course now I'm looking up Saint Francis of Assisi, and I don't know how anybody could learn about Saint Francis of Assisi and not totally fall in love with the guy. And the saints can help teach them, certain prayer. I mean, the Serenity Prayer really spoke to me, and that was very helpful. So I think as Catholics, we need to have like our tool chest of what are the kinds of things that are, I wouldn't open with certain scripture verses that are difficult. Not that, of course they're important and we need to know them, but if you got to think of somebody who hasn't heard any of this and you're coming at them with like something really gnarly, and they're kind of like, whoa, I don't know what you're talking about. I had that experience, Protestants are really more open about trying to get people in. And I remember having people coming up to me with these. I mean, now I would know the scripture verse, but back then I just sounded nuts. I was like, what are you talking about? So maybe you would open with, do not be anxious, or something like that rather than, some of the others. I think about that a lot because I handle the social media for the Chapel of the Holy Cross and St. John Vianney Catholic Church. And I'm very conscious about, which saint quotes am I sharing to who, like I will purposefully find saint quotes for the chapel, for example, or scripture verses that would touch somebody who maybe hasn't even read scripture, or they haven't even heard any of these things before. But and beauty is, we have so much beauty here. I mean, people come to the chapel and they're curious. We have adoration and mass now at the chapel, and they'll come in and be like, well, what's going on here? And I think as Catholics, we need to, I know sometimes we're met with hostility, but we need to try to let down our guard and not assume that's what's happening at first, and just kind of explain it to people. Because I didn't know anything. So it's an opportunity, and not worry about, just plant a seed, don't worry about so much like I have to get this person to understand this right now. And it's tempting to be, sometimes I can be a little, harsh with a, why are you holding that crystal? It's not gonna, that's just a rock. It's a pretty rock, it's not gonna help you. But
I mean,
also,
I do that with my students at the high
yeah,
school. I mean, if they're wearing crystals, I'm like, you don't need that crap. I mean, it looks nice, but why are you wearing that? And I've had some interesting conversations there, but what you said about planting a seed reminded me of something. Have you ever heard Deacon Harold Burke Severs speak?
no.
All right, well, look him up. He's amazing.
Okay.
He's a deacon in Oregon, and just phenomenal. Very, very strong, booming voice. Big black guy. Like, first time I saw him, I was like, man, this guy's like a Baptist preacher. But he's a Catholic deacon, and he's just amazing. Really good guy. But he has this one line where he says, "You plant a seed and you walk away. You plant a seed and you walk away." It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, stop messing around. Like, just plant the seed, get out of there. It'll be okay.
I've definitely had way more success in sharing the wonder and love I have about our faith than anything else. You never should compromise on the truth. Never, of course. But it's pretty hard for people to get snappy with you, and you're just like, have you heard about this awesome? Have you heard about Our Lady of Guadalupe? Like, come on, like, that's the most amazing thing ever, because it is, it's not that hard to get excited about these incredible things. And I mean, just like anything else in life, you go see a good movie, you have a good meal somewhere, and you want to share it with people. Like, have you ever heard this? This is amazing. Have you ever heard about this saint? Have you heard Saint Ignatius of Loyola got hit in the leg with a cannonball? Like, and then had this huge conversion. I mean, these stories are unbelievable, So I definitely have found a lot more success doing that rather than condemning people or whatever, because I think most of the time they don't even realize what they're doing. I mean, that kind of stuff is seeped into our culture so much. Like, it just seems like normal to have a crystal shop or a Ouija board. I mean, like, it's just, and they don't even know. I mean, but people do get angry too. The yoga topic can get really heated with some people,
Well, I'll ask that question too. I have a lot of people that when I was at the parish would ask, well, is it okay if I'm just doing it to stretch? And my response 99% of the time was basically, you can stretch without doing yoga. It's
Yeah.
very possible. Again,
Yeah.
that maybe that's a stupid answer, but it's like,
No,
why do you need yoga to stretch? Like, I stretch and I don't do yoga, and I haven't pulled anything
exactly.
recently. Um, so how would you respond to that? Because I think it is important to make a distinction between maybe some of the stretches that are part of
Mhm.
yoga practice, which are perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with um, doing downward dog or something like that, like in between stretching your back. Like, that's just a natural position for the human body.
Right.
But I mean, when you start getting into like how you're holding your body, or especially like hand mudras or something like that, you're
Mhm.
going somewhere else. So
Yeah.
where do you draw the line
Yeah. Yeah.
practically?
I say what you say too. You know, I was a dancer for 25 years, and so I stretched my whole life as a dancer, and it was
Mm-hmm.
very different than yoga. You know, yoga, there are the
Mm-hmm.
positions are very specific. Like you know, I did yoga teacher training, so you learn like exactly where your hands are supposed to be, exactly where your heels supposed to be, and you know, and you have to correct people to make sure they're in this very specific pose, which does have a background to it. And I want to share a quote. Actually, there's a really great interview between, it's on Pints with Aquinas with somebody named Alex Frank. And I'm going to steal his quote because I thought it was so great. He said, there's an objective quality, I wrote it down, to our actions that go beyond our subjective intent. So there's an objective quality to our actions that go beyond our subjective intent. So a lot of people say,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'll go to a yoga class, but in my mind, I'm thinking about the Our Father and I'm saying a Hail Mary. And it's like, nah, it doesn't really work that way. Like you're still doing this very specific pose in a very specific way that was designed after something that was pretty nefarious that has a history, and you can't your mind, I mean, that quote kind of sums up a lot of the problems in our culture now. Like, well, if I
Yeah.
think, you know, like, you know, normally this means it, but if I think it's something different, then it's different. And it's like, no, there's just some things they just are what they are. And you know,
Yeah, if
you're
the
not
object of an action is wrong, then the intent doesn't matter. The intent
exactly.
might give you more information, but it's not going to, it might lessen your culpability, but it's not going to change the morality of the action.
Exactly. I mean, so these poses were designed for certain reasons, and what you're thinking in your mind at the time isn't going to change that. You know. Um,
Can you name an example or two of like what are some of the backgrounds of
yeah.
these?
I mean, I did when I became Catholic. I kind of just wanted to get rid of a lot of that stuff out of my mind.
Fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, yeah, but I do remember like warrior pose was based on an actual figure that killed all kinds of people, and it was horrible. And it's
Hmm.
like I'm doing a pose after this individual or this figure that killed somebody. You know, I mean, so that's one I can remember off the top of my head, but yeah, a lot of it I was just like, ugh, you know, I don't really want to even. I used to know all this stuff, um, but
Well, and it
you
makes
know,
sense that we should be careful of that because we're body and soul. And so what we do with our bodies affects our soul and vice versa. It's like you say, I mean, something might seem innocuous, it might seem completely harmless, but I mean, how many people justify horrible actions by just saying, well, you know, I didn't mean it that way,
right?
or saying something incredibly hurtful and then saying, well, it was just a joke. It's like, well, you said it, you actually put it out there.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really change the fact.
yeah, there's an objective reality here that we're dealing with. And these, I mean, these pose yoga is very ancient as well. These poses do have a history, and
Mhm.
you know, I do think like it's come to our culture and it's kind of been marketed very well. I would recommend that interview I mentioned, because he does go into all those details and what they mean and all of that. But even when you're practicing it, you do feel something's going on, and those poses, the physical poses, are really just the beginning of the yoga. The yoga practice is really leading to getting into a meditation. The poses are just leading you
Hmm.
to get into meditation, where once again you're emptying yourself and all of that. So they are preparing your body for something, like something's going on there, basically. And whether you
Hmm.
in your mind are thinking something else, it doesn't really matter. And it can work on you without you really even understanding what's happening. And to me, as a Catholic, it's like, why would I even bother? Like, I have everything. Like, as a Catholic, you have everything. Like, why would I even mess with that? Um, and I just say the same thing to people: just stretch, go to Pilates. Like, that's fine, you know. Um, but yeah, if you like to stretch, just stretch. But there is this attachment that a lot of people have. They get very emotional about it,
Hmm.
which to me does show that something more is happening there. Uh, because I don't know too many workouts where people get really emotional and angry when you say, like, it's not really a good idea to be doing this. So yeah, it's
I
interesting.
mean, there's CrossFit, but that's just a bunch of bros that get really excited about being bros at CrossFit. So
Yeah.
this is definitely different because CrossFit is not ancient. Like you said, yoga is
Hmm.
ancient.
Hmm.
And especially like in Indian culture specifically, like I brought up hand mudras. Like I did dance for several years as well, and like we had learned about these different mudras and ways to hold your hands, and they're
Oh,
supposed to evoke these certain changes in your body, like you say, like it's getting you ready for something, it's manifesting something. Well, and scripture is very clear that the gods of the pagans are demons. Like this is not a metaphor. This is it's scripture. It's inerrant. It's something that's clearly being asserted by the author, and therefore I take it at face value that no, your elephant god or whomever is not just some nice caricature. um, like I would even say, like if you look at Greek and Roman pantheons and things like this, these are very clearly personifications of nature. Like they're not personal, even if there's stories of mythological stories about this or that. Um, no one's actually worshiping these deities in the same way that you have in Hinduism. Like there's a true like sacred reality that's spoken of, and it's very clearly, it evokes to me anyway from a historical perspective a lot of those ancient religions that the Jews interacted with in scripture, which were very clearly worshiping demons,
yeah.
like Moloch and Baal and all the rest. Like the demons love to trick us, and it's not always some sort of nefarious spooky thing. It's these little subtle things to just again distract us from God and to pull us away from him. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh, here the Catholics go again with seeing demons and everything," like I love listening to Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, and he always says it's not always demons, it's not always aliens, and so I'll reiterate that here: it's not always demons, but in this case, it actually might be demons.
Yeah, and I mean, really, you look at these statues. I mean, because here in Sedona, you just go to a restaurant and there's statues of these
Hmm.
whatever, monkey thing, elephants, and they are creepy looking. It's kind of like we've been kind of like, I don't know, like brainwashed to think what it's just normal that this weird looking monkey elephant thing would be here. It's like, no, this is weird. This is weird, you guys. Like, but I mean, I was in that too. I wasn't able to
Hmm.
see. I mean, I'd be in a yoga class and we would like chant. I would chant. I don't even know what I was saying, but I mean, I
Hmm.
was chanting stuff. That's kind of weird, you know. I didn't know what that was, or I went to a Buddhist retreat and they were pouring some liquid in our hands to drink. I didn't know what it was. And it's like we're kind of in this weird place where it's like, well, no, it's totally cool. It's fine. Whatever, it doesn't matter. sometimes it feels good. But like I said to you before we started, like just because something feels good doesn't mean it is good. Like we have to think beyond that. We have to ask questions. What does this mean? What are we
Hmm.
surrendering to? What's happening here? And I think we'll find it's not good. And the Catholic faith has answers to everything. A lot of people want to paint our faith as it's some sort of mythological, we're crazy. But when you start studying it, yeah, we have reasons for literally every single thing we do. It's explained very well. And we welcome the questions, faith and reason are part of faith. We don't have to check our brain at the door. But a
Hmm.
lot of these places, like that's people are doing that. And I think it's they're searching. It's emotional. They're looking. And it feels good. So I think it's not. A lot of this isn't on purpose. It might be it may be an ignorance or or they're just not haven't been introduced to the truth, or they had a bad experience. A lot of people had bad experiences at the church, unfortunately,
Hmm.
and that's part of the problem. So yeah.
Well, it seems very dissonant. I mean, you're saying people are searching, they're seeking, they're looking for truth. Then they do these practices, which inevitably leads them to feelings of emptiness and nothingness, and perhaps even nihilism.
Hmm.
But they're looking for peace. They want to be free of their anxieties, and then they recognize maybe they have a moment where they go, nothing actually matters, or it's whatever, or it's spiritual, it's fine. But there's something more. I want more.
Hmm.
It seems very, very cognitively dissonant.
Yeah.
It like so like with palm reading or fortune telling or something like this, where you're trying to figure out what your future holds, but you've already established that nothing matters. So why do you care? It's kind of I don't think that's an unfair representation. I think it's just
Yeah.
shows the cognitive dissonance. Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Well, I think it shows too that no matter how much we want to say like nothing matters or it's empty, like there's something within us. It's our nature as human beings. Like we're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
satisfied with that. It's not going to satisfy us. And it feels like, oh, I'm going to have more peace if I have less responsibility and I don't have to be burdening myself with relationships, and I can just do what feels good. But that actually gives us less peace because we're
Mm-hmm.
built to have these relationships. We're built to take something on. I always find it interesting. I really like to listen to World War II stories, just because of the just people did incredible things, had such courage and went through so much. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these men who fought in World War II, I mean, they talk about it like as if it's like the best thing they ever did, like the best time of their life. And you're like, how do they look at back at it in that way? And it's like because they were doing something that meant something, like they were fighting for something, they were struggling for something. And deep down, like that's what we want. We want to be giving ourselves and doing something that matters, and that's not going to go away, and
Mm-hmm.
our Lord, I mean, he called, pick up your cross and follow me, I mean, he knows that this is what we're called to that. And I know it's hard. I mean, I fall into it myself. Like some days I'm just like, "Oh, I just want to like get a cabin somewhere and be by myself, with no responsibility, but I know like that's not why we're here. We're not here just to hang out until we die, like just doing things we like to do. I mean, that's not what we were made for. And we know this inside. I think that's why you're seeing that contradiction with people where it's just like they're going after this supposed piece of not having any responsibility, becoming nothing, but then they're seeking after these going to a psychic and finding out their future, or grabbing a rock and thinking like, if I hold this, then something's going to happen, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's really interesting how there does seem to be a contradiction there, but and we find more peace when we're giving of ourselves.
Mhm.
It's interesting. The world tells us something different for sure.
Well, that was Saint John Paul II's favorite passage from Gaudium et Spes in Vatican II is paragraph 24. Man only finds himself in a sincere gift of himself.
Oh yeah.
That we only really find meaning and fulfillment when we are connected with others, and it's like you said, it's communion with God and communion with others who are in communion with God. I mean, that's heaven. That's literally the definition of heaven, is communion with God and communion with those in communion with Him. And that's what we're all called to. And there's clearly a lot of work to do. There's a lot of opportunities, and I think I'm definitely going to name this episode "We're Not Called to Hang Out Until We Die." That's
Just
definitely going to
chill.
be the title. We're not just called to chill until we die. Um,
Yeah,
Excellent. Well,
sacrifice. I mean, we're really, yeah, are called to sacrifice and humility, like you pointed out earlier. And we're living in such a comfortable time
mm,
that I think it's, in a sense, it's harder for us to understand that. It's like, well, I'll give until, but I'll still be comfortable, like I'll give you this much, but I'm going to keep this much so I'm still comfortable. And we're really called to give until it hurts, and we're called to be humble and vulnerable. And it's hard for me sometimes. Like, I want to have this, I'm okay, everything's fine, and and being comfortable. But it's, no, we're meant, like you said, I mean, we're meant to be in the mess. We're meant to be in the mess of the parish, the mess of relationships, the mess, that's that's where the good stuff is, really.
it's something, but we're called to muddle through it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Rae-Mi, any final parting thoughts, parting words? Where can people find out more about the parish and about the work you're doing there?
Yes, thanks for saying that. Yeah, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The chapel can be found at Chapel Sedona, and our parish, St. John Vianney Catholic Church, can be found at SJV Sedona. Yeah, and we're updating it all the time. So it's a great way to stay connected to what's going on here, but also help develop your faith. We have great videos and homilies, and just the beauty of Sedona too. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Well, and I would definitely echo that. If you're in Sedona, if you're in Arizona, make a trip to Sedona. Definitely go to the Chapel of the Holy Cross. It is an international destination. People come there who aren't Catholic, uh, just to go there. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen that online. People
it's such
talking
a
about it on
great.
travel forums.
Yeah, we always say, we're told as Christians to bring the gospel to the world, and the world comes to us here in Sedona. So literally millions of people visit the chapel. It's just a beautiful spot. People from all backgrounds, all beliefs, and it's just such a golden opportunity for us that we're really trying to grasp. And yeah, go to chapeloftheholycross.com. We do have masses there twice a week. And it's just a really beautiful experience. And the church is at sjvsedona.org. And it's beautiful too. A lot of people don't, they go to the chapel because it's famous, but the grounds of the parish are just beautiful and huge. So yeah, we'd love to see you.
I'm gonna have to make a drive up there. I've actually never been to the parish, so I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to check it out for
yeah,
sure.
it's gorgeous.
Awesome. Well, Rae-Mi, thanks so much for your time, and thank you all for listening. Good Distinctions are the spice of life. If you haven't yet subscribed to Good Distinctions, go to gooddistinctions.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Good Distinctions and Facebook at Good Distinctions, and send us an email at gooddistinctions@gmail.com. Love to hear from you if you have ideas for topics or would like anything in particular discussed. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about here, I'd be happy to pass that on to Rae-Mi to get her thoughts and then publish it on the forum on Substack, if you'd be okay with that, Rae-Mi.
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Good Distinctions. Good distinctions are the spice of life. Thanks so much, and God bless.